The sun slowly peeked over the rolling hills, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. The morning air was cool and fresh, making everything feel calm and peaceful. In the small town, people were starting their day. The market was busy with friendly chatter as shoppers walked around, looking for fresh fruits, vegetables, and warm bread. The smell of freshly baked pastries filled the air, making everyone's stomachs growl. Birds chirped happily from the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the sound of laughter and conversations from shop to shop. Not far from the market, there was a small, cozy diner that had been part of the town for many years. The diner had bright red chairs and shiny silver tables. A bell above the door jingled every time someone walked in. Inside, the smell of coffee and pancakes made the whole place feel warm and welcoming. The walls were decorated with old pictures of the town, showing how much things had changed over the years. In the middle of all this, Sarah stood behind the counter, tying her apron tightly around her waist. She smiled brightly, ready to start another day of work. Her smile could light up a room, and her kindness made everyone feel special. Sarah had worked at the diner for a few years, and she loved her job. She enjoyed greeting customers, serving food, and chatting with the regulars who came in every day. To most people, it seemed like an ordinary morning, but for Sarah, every day was a new adventure. Sarah was special in many ways. She had Down syndrome, but that never stopped her from doing her best. The people in town loved her because she was always kind, hardworking, and full of joy. Every morning, she arrived early, making sure everything was clean and ready for customers. She greeted each person by name, remembering their favorite orders and little details about their lives. Even though Sarah faced many challenges in life, she never let them bring her down. Some tasks took her longer to learn, and sometimes, people did not understand her right away. But Sarah was patient, and she always tried her best. Her co-workers admired her because she never gave up and always had a positive attitude. One of Sarah's special gifts was her ability to notice things that others didn't. She could remember small details, like where someone left their keys or how they liked their coffee. If a customer looked sad, she could tell right away and would offer them a warm smile or a kind word. This made her an important part of the diner. Sarah's co-workers loved working with her because she was always cheerful and willing to help. The customers loved her too. She had a way of making everyone feel welcome, no matter how their day was going. Even if someone came in feeling sad or stressed, they often left with a smile after talking to Sarah. As Sarah set the tables and wiped the counter, the first customers of the day started coming in. Mr. Thompson, an elderly man who had been visiting the diner for years, walked in with his usual cheerful smile. "Good morning, Sarah," he said warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Pancakes and coffee today?" Sarah asked, already knowing his answer. "You know me too well," he chuckled. As she poured his coffee, more customers entered the diner. Families with little children, workers on their way to their jobs, and friends meeting for breakfast filled the seats. The diner buzzed with happy conversations and the clinking of plates and glasses. Sarah moved quickly but carefully, taking orders and serving food with a smile. She loved hearing people's stories and sharing little jokes with the regulars. But despite her happiness, deep down, Sarah faced her own challenges every day. Some people were kind and patient with her, while others didn't understand her struggles. Even though most people in the town loved Sarah, there were times when she faced difficulties. Some customers would get impatient when she took a little longer to take their orders. Others would talk to her in a way that made her feel small or unimportant. But Sarah never let it show. She kept smiling and doing her job with pride. She knew that not everyone understood her, but she hoped that by working hard and being kind, she could change people's minds. She believed that everyone deserved kindness and respect, no matter their differences. Sarah's parents had always taught her to believe in herself and to never give up. They reminded her every day that she was special and that she could do anything she set her mind to. Their support gave her the courage to face each new day with confidence. Before we continue with Sarah's story, take a moment to think, have you ever seen someone being treated unfairly? Maybe it was at school, at work, or even in a store. Did you say something, or did you stay quiet? Sometimes, standing up for others can be hard, but it's important to do the right thing. If you have ever witnessed something unfair, what did you do? Or what do you wish you had done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to do the right thing next time they see injustice. Despite the challenges, Sarah had a special talent that made her stand out: her incredible attention to detail. She noticed the little things that others missed. If a customer seemed upset, she would bring them an extra cookie with their coffee. If someone forgot their jacket, she would remember exactly where they left it. Sarah's ability to see the small things made her invaluable to the diner. Her boss, Mrs. Taylor, often said, "Sarah, you have the best memory in town." And Sarah would smile proudly, knowing that she was good at something important. As the day went on, Sarah continued to work with a happy heart. She believed that kindness was the most important thing in the world. Even if someone was rude or impatient, she always treated them with respect. She knew that a small act of kindness could change someone's entire day. Sarah hoped that by being kind and working hard, she could show people that everyone deserves a chance, no matter their challenges. She dreamed of a world where people understood each other better and treated each other with more love and respect. Sarah's story is just beginning, and there is so much more to discover. She may face challenges along the way, but with her courage, kindness, and support from her friends and family, there's nothing she can't handle. If you've ever felt like Sarah, facing challenges but pushing forward, know that you're not alone. Keep believing in yourself, just like Sarah does. And remember, the next time you see someone being treated unfairly, don't be afraid to speak up. Your voice matters. The morning at the diner started like any other. People were enjoying their breakfast, chatting with friends, and sipping on warm coffee. The soft clinking of forks and spoons filled the air, mixing with the smell of pancakes and eggs. Sarah moved from table to table, smiling and taking orders. She loved her job, and the customers loved her. Suddenly, the peaceful morning was interrupted. The door slammed open with a loud bang. The sound was so strong that everyone in the diner jumped. Conversations stopped, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. A tall man in a black leather jacket stormed in. His heavy boots thudded against the shiny diner floor as he marched straight to the counter. Sarah, standing behind the counter, looked up and smiled politely. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" she asked in her usual friendly tone. The man did not smile back. Instead, he frowned and spoke in a loud, gruff voice. "Coffee. Black. No sugar. Hurry up." Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the coffee pot. "Right away, sir," she said, trying her best to stay calm. She carefully poured the steaming coffee into a white mug and placed it on the counter. The man grabbed the mug, took a sip, and scowled. "This isn't right," he barked. "I said no sugar." Sarah blinked, confused. "Sir, I didn't put any sugar in it," she said gently. The man slammed the mug down so hard that some of the coffee spilled onto the counter. "Are you deaf? I told you what I wanted," he shouted. The diner grew even quieter. Customers exchanged nervous glances, and some whispered to each other. A few people lowered their heads, trying to avoid the angry man's gaze. The air in the diner felt heavy, and Sarah could feel her heartbeat quicken. Despite feeling nervous, Sarah stood tall. She took a deep breath and said in a calm voice, "I'm sorry, sir. Would you like me to make a fresh cup for you?" The man glared at her. His eyes were cold and full of anger. "Just get it right this time," he snapped. Sarah quickly poured another cup, careful to follow his request exactly. As she handed it to him, she noticed something others might not have seen. His hands were shaking slightly, and there was a strong smell of alcohol coming from him. She had seen this kind of behavior before, people who were angry not because of the service, but because of something deeper. While others in the diner looked away, pretending not to notice, Sarah observed closely. The man's eyes looked tired, and there was a sadness hidden beneath his anger. Sarah realized that maybe he was not just mad about the coffee, maybe something else was wrong. But before she could say anything, the man's patience ran out. "You're too slow!" he yelled, his voice echoing through the diner. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Sarah's face turned red. Her hands clenched tightly, but she stayed calm. Deep down, she felt hurt. She always tried her best to help customers, and it was hard to hear such mean words. But Sarah reminded herself to be strong. "You're doing great, Sarah," she thought to herself. At that moment, a voice spoke from the corner of the diner. "Hey, that's enough." Everyone turned toward the sound. Sitting in the corner was a man wearing a simple black t-shirt and jeans. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. It was Keanu Reeves. He had been sitting quietly, enjoying his breakfast, but now he stood up and walked toward the counter. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. She had seen him on TV before, but she never expected to see him in the diner. The angry man looked at Keanu and frowned. "Who are you?" he asked. Keanu didn't answer the question. Instead, he looked at Sarah and gave her a kind smile. Then he turned to the man and said, "She's just doing her job, man. No need to yell." The angry man's face turned red with embarrassment. He muttered something under his breath but didn't argue. Instead, he grabbed his coffee and sat down at a table, avoiding eye contact with Keanu. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She smiled gratefully at Keanu and whispered, "Thank you." Keanu nodded and gave her a small wink. "No problem," he said before sitting back down to finish his breakfast. The diner slowly returned to normal. Conversations started up again, and the sound of clinking dishes filled the air once more. But Sarah couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. She felt proud of herself for staying calm, and she was grateful that someone had spoken up for her. Sarah looked around the diner and saw customers smiling at her, offering kind nods of encouragement. She knew that not everyone would understand her, but she also knew that kindness could go a long way. As she wiped down the counter, she thought about all the times she had faced people who didn't treat her kindly. It wasn't easy, but Sarah believed that staying strong and being kind was the best way to handle it. "Before we go on, let me ask you something. What would you do if you were in Sarah's shoes? Would you stay calm like she did? Or would you say something back to the angry man? Let us know in the comments below." Sarah's story reminds us that kindness and patience can make a big difference, even in difficult situations. And sometimes, standing up for what's right like Keanu did can help make the world a better place. After the incident at the diner, things slowly returned to normal. The customers went back to eating, and Sarah continued her work with a smile. But Keanu Reeves couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. There was something about the angry man that didn't sit right with him. Keanu had seen a lot in his life, and his instincts told him that there was more to the story. Once the diner quieted down, Keanu walked over to the counter where Sarah was cleaning up the spilled coffee. He leaned in and asked softly, "Sarah, has that man been here before?" Sarah looked up at him, her big brown eyes filled with curiosity. She nodded slowly and said, "Yes. He comes here a lot. He always seems angry. Sometimes he yells at people. I try to be nice, but he never smiles." Keanu thought for a moment. "Do you know anything else about him?" Sarah wiped her hands on her apron and thought carefully. "Well, he always sits at the same table. And sometimes, he talks to other men in dark jackets. They sit in the corner and whisper. I think they're hiding something." Keanu nodded. "Thank you, Sarah. That's very helpful." He gave her a kind smile. Later that day, after finishing his meal, Keanu decided to talk to the diner owner, Mrs. Taylor. She was an older woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Keanu asked her about the man in the leather jacket. Mrs. Taylor sighed and said, "Oh, that man? He's been causing trouble around here for months. He's always in a bad mood and seems to be up to no good. A few times, I've seen him exchanging small packages with strangers outside the diner." Keanu's mind started working quickly. He had seen things like this before. Something didn't feel right. He decided to find out more. Keanu knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed help. He thought about Sarah and her amazing memory. She noticed small details that others often missed. If anyone could help, it was Sarah. "Sarah," Keanu said the next day when he returned to the diner, "would you like to help me with something important?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "Me? Really?" Keanu nodded. "Yes. You have a great eye for details, and I think you can help me figure out what's going on with that man." Sarah felt nervous but also excited. "Okay, I'll do my best." Together, they went to visit the local sheriff, Sheriff Rivera. He was a tall man with a friendly smile and a serious look in his eyes. Keanu explained what had happened at the diner and what Sarah had noticed. The sheriff listened carefully and nodded. "I've had my suspicions about that guy," Sheriff Rivera said. "But I didn't have enough proof to do anything. If you two are willing to help, we can look into this more." Keanu, Sarah, and Sheriff Rivera decided to visit Dr. Chen, the town pharmacist. Dr. Chen was a smart and kind man who had been running the pharmacy for many years. Keanu believed he might have noticed something unusual about the man in the leather jacket. When they arrived at the pharmacy, Dr. Chen welcomed them with a warm smile. "How can I help you today?" Keanu explained the situation, and Dr. Chen's smile faded. He looked concerned. "I've noticed something strange," he said. "Lately, people have been coming in with unusual prescriptions. Some of them look fake. And I've heard that some people are getting very sick after taking strange pills." Keanu's face grew serious. "Do you think these fake pills could be connected to the man from the diner?" Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "It's possible. We need to be careful and find out more." With Sarah's keen observation skills, Sheriff Rivera's authority, and Dr. Chen's knowledge, they began their investigation. They kept an eye on the man whenever he came to the diner. Sarah carefully watched his behavior. She noticed how he looked around nervously and whispered to others in hushed tones. Sheriff Rivera did some research and found out that the man had been seen in other places around town, always meeting different people and handing them small bags. It didn't take long to realize that something illegal was happening. Keanu and Sarah sat down one afternoon to talk. "Sarah," Keanu said, "I think we are dealing with something very serious. This might be bigger than we thought." Sarah nodded but looked worried. "What if we can't stop them? What if I'm not good enough to help?" Keanu smiled kindly and put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, you are amazing. You noticed things no one else did. You are smart and brave. I've had times in my life when I felt unsure, too. But I learned that believing in yourself is the most important thing." Sarah took a deep breath and smiled. "I'll do my best," she said. As they gathered more information, they realized how dangerous the situation was. The counterfeit drugs were not just a small problem. They were spreading across town and even to nearby cities. People were getting sick, and some were even ending up in the hospital. Sheriff Rivera explained, "If we don't stop them, more people could get hurt. This isn't just about our town, it's much bigger." Sarah felt a little scared but also determined. "We have to stop them," she said firmly. Keanu nodded. "Yes, and we will." After days of careful watching and gathering clues, they decided it was time to take action. They planned to catch the man in the leather jacket in the act. Sheriff Rivera arranged for undercover officers to watch him closely, while Sarah continued to work at the diner, keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity. One afternoon, the man came into the diner again. This time, Sarah noticed something new. He was carrying a black bag that he kept close to him at all times. Her heart raced, but she stayed calm and whispered to Keanu, "I think something big is happening." Keanu quickly contacted Sheriff Rivera, and within minutes, the officers were ready. They followed the man as he left the diner and caught him meeting with another suspicious person in an alley. When they approached, they found the bag full of counterfeit pills. The man was arrested, and the town finally breathed a sigh of relief. After everything was over, Sarah felt proud. She had been part of something important, and she had helped make a difference. Keanu smiled at her and said, "See? You're stronger than you think." Sarah beamed with pride. She realized that even though she sometimes doubted herself, she had the power to help and make things better. Have you ever felt like the odds were stacked against you? Have you ever doubted yourself but then found out you were stronger than you thought? Share your story in the comments. It might inspire someone else. Sarah's story teaches us that courage, kindness, and teamwork can help solve even the biggest problems. And no matter how small you feel, you can always make a big difference. It was a cold evening when everything finally came together. The town had been quiet, but Keanu Reeves, Sarah, Sheriff Rivera, and Dr. Chen knew that something big was about to happen. The investigation had led them to an old, abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. The warehouse looked dark and scary, with broken windows and rusted doors. It was the perfect place to hide something bad. Sarah stood outside with Keanu and the sheriff. Her heart was beating fast. She felt nervous but also excited. She had come so far, and now it was time to help catch the bad guys. Keanu looked at Sarah and gave her an encouraging smile. "You got this, Sarah. Just remember, you're stronger than you think." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. She had noticed little things throughout the investigation, things that others had missed. She knew she could help. They quietly walked into the warehouse, their footsteps echoing on the cold concrete floor. It was dark inside, with only a few small lights flickering from broken bulbs. Old crates and boxes were stacked everywhere, and the air smelled musty. Sheriff Rivera held up his hand, signaling for everyone to stop. He whispered, "Stay quiet. They could be anywhere." Sarah looked around carefully. Her sharp eyes noticed something unusual. There was a small crack in the floor, leading to a wooden panel that didn't quite fit with the rest. She tugged on Keanu's sleeve and pointed. "Look. That doesn't look right." Keanu crouched down and gently pushed on the wooden panel. It creaked and slowly opened, revealing a hidden passage beneath the floor. Inside, they saw stacks of small plastic bags filled with pills. Sarah's eyes widened. "We found it," she whispered excitedly. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching. "Quick, hide!" Keanu whispered. They all ducked behind some crates, watching as the man in the leather jacket from the diner walked in with two other men. The men didn't know they were being watched. They talked in low voices, counting the bags and checking a clipboard. Sarah listened carefully, trying to catch what they were saying. One of the men grinned. "This town is too easy. No one suspects a thing." But they were wrong. Keanu and the team were ready to stop them. Sheriff Rivera whispered into his radio, calling for backup. But before the officers could arrive, one of the men spotted something. "Hey! Did you hear that?" he said, looking around suspiciously. Sarah held her breath, hoping they wouldn't see them. But then, the man in the leather jacket shouted, "Someone's here! Let's go!" The men tried to escape, but Keanu and the sheriff jumped into action. "Stop right there!" Sheriff Rivera shouted, pulling out his badge. The bad guys panicked and ran in different directions. Sarah saw the man in the leather jacket running toward the back door. She knew he would get away if they didn't act fast. Her mind raced. Then she remembered something. There was an old stack of boxes near the exit that looked unstable. "Keanu! The boxes!" she shouted. Keanu quickly understood what she meant. He ran toward the boxes and pushed them over, blocking the door just as the man reached it. The man crashed into the boxes and fell to the ground. Sheriff Rivera quickly handcuffed him. Sarah watched in amazement. "We did it," she said, her face lighting up with relief. The police officers arrived and arrested the other two men. Dr. Chen looked at the bags and shook his head. "These fake drugs could have hurt so many people," he said sadly. Keanu looked at Sarah proudly. "Sarah, without you, we wouldn't have found this place. You were amazing." Sarah blushed but felt proud of herself. She had faced her fears and helped stop something dangerous. As the police took the men away, Sarah stood there for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened. At the beginning of the investigation, she wasn't sure if she could really help. She had doubted herself many times. But now, she knew that she was strong and smart. She turned to Keanu and said, "I was really scared, but I'm glad I didn't give up." Keanu smiled. "That's what makes you a hero, Sarah. You didn't let fear stop you." Sarah felt a warm feeling in her heart. She had proven to herself and everyone else that she could do important things. Mrs. Taylor, the diner owner, heard what had happened and hugged Sarah when she returned to work the next day. "I always knew you were special, Sarah," she said proudly. "If you were in Sarah's shoes, what would you have done? Would you have stayed calm and helped like Sarah did?" Sometimes, being brave doesn't mean fighting, it means using your skills to make a difference. Let us know what you think in the comments. Sarah's story teaches us that everyone has something special inside them. Even if you think you're not strong enough or smart enough, you can still make a big difference. By staying kind, observant, and brave, Sarah helped stop something dangerous and made her town a safer place. And the best part? She believed in herself. No matter who you are, you can be a hero in your own way, just like Sarah. The night after the big showdown at the warehouse, the town finally felt at peace. The police had taken the bad guys away, and the dangerous fake drugs were no longer a threat. Everyone who had worked so hard, Sarah, Keanu Reeves, Sheriff Rivera, and Dr. Chen, felt proud of what they had done. Sarah stood outside the diner the next morning, looking up at the bright blue sky. She felt different now. Stronger. Braver. She had helped stop something really bad, and that made her smile. She had always been kind and hardworking, but now she knew she could do even more. Inside the diner, customers were talking excitedly about the news. "Did you hear? The police caught the bad guys," one man said. "I heard Sarah helped them find the secret hiding place," another customer added. Sarah blushed as she walked in, but she felt proud inside. Mrs. Taylor, the diner's owner, gave her a big hug. "Sarah, we are so proud of you," she said warmly. "You didn't just help the police, you showed everyone how smart and brave you are." Later that afternoon, something special happened. Sheriff Rivera walked into the diner with a group of people. They were holding a big banner that said, "Thank you, Sarah." Everyone in the diner clapped and cheered. Sarah's eyes widened with surprise. "For me?" she asked. Keanu Reeves stepped forward and smiled. "Yes, Sarah. You were a big part of this team. Without you, we wouldn't have found the hidden passage or stopped the bad guys. You did something amazing, and we all want to thank you." Sheriff Rivera handed Sarah a certificate that said, "Bravery Award, presented to Sarah for outstanding courage and observation skills." Sarah's hands shook as she held the certificate. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they were happy tears. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling overwhelmed with joy. Mrs. Taylor wiped a tear from her own eye. "Sarah, you showed us all that no matter who we are, we can do great things if we believe in ourselves." That night, Sarah sat at home with her parents, holding her award. Her mom and dad hugged her tightly. "We always knew you could do it, sweetie," her mom said proudly. Sarah thought about how much she had learned. Before all of this happened, she sometimes doubted herself. She wondered if she could really make a difference. But now she knew the truth: she was important, and her skills mattered. Keanu had told her something that stuck in her mind. Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it, he had said. Sarah realized he was right. A few days later, Keanu came to the diner again. He sat down at his favorite table and smiled at Sarah as she brought him his coffee. "Sarah," he said, "I want you to remember something." Sarah sat down across from him, listening carefully. "No matter how small you think your actions are, they can make a big difference. Standing up for what's right, helping others, and being kind, those things matter. And you showed everyone in this town that even one person can change the world." Sarah smiled. "Thank you, Keanu. I'll never forget that." He nodded. "Good. And remember, whenever you face a challenge, just be yourself. You're stronger than you think." Sarah felt warm inside. She had always looked up to Keanu, and now she was even more inspired by his words. As Sarah was cleaning up the diner one evening, she looked out the window and noticed something strange. A man in a dark coat was standing across the street, watching the diner. She felt a chill go down her spine. Could he be part of the bad group that they had just stopped? Or was it just a regular person? Sarah wasn't sure, but she knew one thing: something didn't feel right. She decided to tell Keanu and Sheriff Rivera about it the next day. "We stopped one bad group, but what if there are more?" she asked. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "We always have to stay alert, Sarah. Sometimes trouble hides where we least expect it." Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Could there be more mysteries to solve? She didn't know for sure, but she was ready for whatever came next. The town decided to throw a small party at the diner to celebrate. People brought balloons and cake, and Sarah's favorite song played in the background. Everyone wanted to take pictures with her and thank her for what she did. Dr. Chen patted Sarah on the shoulder. "You saved lives, Sarah. And that's something to be very proud of." Sarah beamed with happiness. She realized that standing up for what's right might be scary, but it was always worth it. Sarah knew that life would go back to normal at the diner, but deep down, she felt different. She wanted to do more. She wanted to keep helping people and using her skills to make a difference. Before leaving the party, Keanu whispered, "Sarah, don't stop here. Keep believing in yourself, and you'll do even greater things." Sarah nodded. "I will." Sarah's story is proof that anyone can make a difference, no matter who they are. What about you? Have you ever faced a challenge and overcome it? Have you ever helped someone in need? We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to stand up for what's right. Sarah's journey is just beginning. What do you think she should do next? Should she help Sheriff Rivera solve more cases? Or should she find a new mystery at the diner? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter of Sarah's adventure. Let us know what you think Sarah should do next. Your comments mean the world to us. As Sarah locked up the diner that night, she felt a new sense of purpose. She had faced fear, stood strong, and made a difference. And deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning of something even bigger. With a smile, she whispered to herself, "I can do anything." And with that, Sarah walked home, ready for whatever adventure lay ahead.